Welcome to AWS She Builds Tech Skills with your hosts, Mai and May.
Welcome tech community, welcome to She Builds Tech Skills, episode 20. If you're new to the programs, She Builds Tech Skill is all about women in tech, bringing all the women together to talk about the technology, the experience, and the career journey. My name is May, I'm a solutions architect from Amazon Web Service. And today we have a co-host, Mai.
Thanks, May. My name is Mai, and I'm a solutions architect from AWS as well. And I come from a sysadmin background, and I love monitoring and observability. And speaking of which, we have a very special guest here from the US, Nandini Ramani. Now, Nandini is a vice president of AWS, and in her role, she oversees product engineering and operations for AWS monitoring and observability portfolio of services, which includes Amazon CloudWatch, AWS X-Ray, Amazon Managed Grafana, and Amazon Managed Service for Prometheus. Now, Nandini, you've held numerous senior positions in the past in your career, including VP roles, which many people dream about, and May and I, and the audience is wondering about how did you get here, and what's your steps and advice and for those that dream of being in a senior role like yourself right now?
First of all, thank you both for having me here. The program She Builds sounds very inspiring, and I'm excited to share my experiences with all of you. So to address your question, for me, it wasn't a deliberate journey to become a vice president. It wasn't what I aspired, and actually, funny story, when I started out my career, which I started in hardware, building hardware chipsets, I was actually on a path to be a distinguished engineer because I felt there weren't enough women, and so I was a senior staff engineer in those days and was very determined that I had to represent. So it was more because, Sun Microsystems, which was one of the companies I was with, when it was going through some turbulent times, resourcing became everything, and so I made a lateral move to become a director. And that was my journey into leadership. So mine is probably a little atypical in how I made it into leadership. And I had to learn the hard way because I didn't come through like first level manager to second. And my first foray into leadership, I was terrible at it. I was trying to do code reviews and critiquing code and trying to do bug fixing and everything. And my team basically said, can you either pick a lane? Do you want to be a manager or do you want to be an IC? And so I learned it the hard way, but just general tips I will say, I think we have to be more deliberate and take more ownership and responsibility for our careers and decide what it is you want to do. Because let me take here at AWS, you can be a vice president as an individual contributor, or you can be a vice president as a manager. Mm-hmm. So you can pick and choose, and at Amazon we have so many opportunities. So for me it was a lot about people I looked up to, learned different skills from, and one of the people that I listened to was a person called Carla Harris. You should look her up on YouTube. Yeah. And she talks about how in our journey we should all have mentors, sponsors, and advisors. Most of us think about mentors as a way, someone to mentor us and tell us what you want to do. But it's very rare you hear about people who are sponsors and advisors. I've taken that to heart, and even today in my role, I always seek people who can advise me when I have an individual issue that I'm trying to resolve. Or sponsors are people who can advocate for you. Yeah. Be your staunch supporter and advocate when the opportunity.
That's really interesting because at AWS we talk about having a mentor, but now you bring that to really important points, advisor, and also being advocates for you and looking for opportunity. If there's an opportunity, they can put you in place and then make that connection.
Totally.
So
which helps you then figure out where you want to go. Yeah. So not only should you aspire to have advisors, sponsors, and mentors, I encourage everyone to be a mentor, sponsor, and advisor as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. I think I'm going to continue that career question there. So within AWS, what is really unique as women in tech or exec leaders being at AWS? Like, how does the company culture cultivate and promote exec leaders?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you an example. I was here, obviously, yesterday for the AWS Summit keynote. And on the stage, we had 3 women leaders and 1 male participant. And I mean, I've gotten so used to being in a very, male-dominated tech community that it was very inspiring to hear people applaud the fact that we had 3 women leaders on stage. So I will say, so I'm coming up on 2 years at AWS. Mm-hmm. I have never really felt or alienated or different or anything. I feel like it's a place that just empowers you to do the best you can be. Yeah. And our leadership principles, I think, help you get there no matter whether you're a woman or otherwise. And we have a lot of women leaders for you to look up to, right? They say, I'm not sure who exactly said it, but you cannot be what you cannot see. Mm-hmm. So if there's no role models, it's very hard to aspire to be that person. And at AWS, we have plenty of us.
That's really true. So that's exactly the She Builds Tech Skill program is about. One part of it is also to be more visible as women in technology, to inspire younger generation or women who is changing a career into tech. And we want to make sure that there are a lot of really brilliant, smart women in technology that can uplift the industry and make sure that the place is equitable and they embrace that diversity.
Yeah, and we have a lot of programs where you can reskill yourself and be part of the tech community, even here within Amazon. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's a really good point. All right, let's move on to the next question. I guess you have gone through a lot of the journey, like within your career. What are some challenges that you could share that you overcome throughout your career? Like, what are the key highlights, and then some challenges, and what advice would you give to your younger self?
Great question. Yeah. So for me, actually, I said I started my career in hardware, which I did, and I have an electrical engineering background. And then when I watch the market where, they say skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is very true, because when hardware chips started to become a commodity and people were doing more off the shelf, I moved to software. And that was a big leap for me, going from hardware, which was my, safety net, if you will, to hardware. And then if you look at my career, I've gone from enterprise companies like Oracle to more B2C company like Twitter.
Yeah.
And then I did another leap to a healthcare startup, which was very small. And then now I'm back in enterprise SaaS with AWS. So for me, my journey has sort of been push the envelope, and every new thing I do, I like to learn something new that's a little outside my comfort zone. Yeah. So if I were to advise my younger self, that's what I would say. Don't be afraid. It's the scar tissue you build that makes you a leader. And, we have this leadership principle that says, all right a lot.
Yeah.
You're not born all right a lot. You get there by learning how to be right a lot. And so you have to try it. And that would be my advice to young folks. And one thing, I'll just share a little tidbit with you. When I was younger, I grew up in India, in Bangalore. And my brother used to race motorbikes, and I used to ride bikes as well, like motorbikes. And so I told my dad I want to race as well. And he said, well, if you want to go do it, do it. Yeah. Why not? And there was no category for women or girls, because girls didn't race. And so I raced with the boys. It was dirt drag racing, where you go in like these
and you did it when you were 16. When
I was 16, I raced all the way. No, I do not do it anymore. But I have a lot of scar tissue from that physically. But so I look back at that and I tell myself, if I could do that when I was 16, creating a new path, hopefully for other girls who wanted to race, I can do that now. It doesn't matter that you're older or whatever. So I look back at experiences I've had that motivate me to push myself and be bigger and better, I guess.
Now, you talk about creating a new path. What kind of communities are you involved in terms of uplifting other women in the industry? I know you're part of the Women Engineering, exec sponsor of the Women Engineers group in Twitter, alongside Makers Women. Love to hear more around that.
Yeah, and I participate even within AWS with the same spirit in all the programs we have. So Makers, for instance, one of the things I really like about Makers, they tell stories of women. So instead of like just chats or profiling, they tell stories of women entrepreneurs or people who are starting new businesses or who have little retail, all kinds of different stories. The other thing I've really appreciated is the Tech Women program. It's sponsored by the Department of State back in the US, and they empower women across the globe to come and be part of a program in the US where they go to different companies and learn from other women leaders. So there's lots of programs which, and by the way, at AWS, if you have ideas, you can create these programs. There's so much of support and energy behind it. Ideas come from everywhere, and I really do believe, we have the talent here to do that. I mean, it was International Women's Month, and we did a lot of things last month, so
that's really amazing.
My aspiration, though, is that we don't need a Women's Month just for women. We should be, all 12 months should be Women's Month. That's where I want to get to, yes.
No, that's really cool. All right. Mike, do you want to ask some questions?
Some technical questions. So you were recently at Summit. Did you get to walk around the exhibition floor and see some really cool dashboards using some of the AWS and CloudWatch or Amazon Managed Grafana dashboards out there?
I didn't actually see my own dashboards, but I was super impressed with some of the builder programs, everybody trying to work with all of our different services and resources. And today we have over 200 services. So there's so many ways to choose and learn. And I did walk the floors. But I will say, for me personally, I feel like because I'm not partly, I guess, self-motivated, I'm responsible for observability. But given the volume of data we are dealing with today and the migration into cloud and the pace of innovation, observability is so front and center. Like, I love the phrase that says, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And measuring comes from having the data, having the telemetry, and then knowing what to do with it, So I'm very passionate about the observability space in particular.
I've heard somebody told me, you cannot fix what you can't see.
Exactly, it's the same, yeah.
So observability is one of the key topic among our customers, and especially modernizing migration into the cloud. And they're starting to learn a lot of the metrics and the data that you can absorb from the applications and the health of the applications and how they can improve down the track.
Yeah.
And as part of the containers community, we're curious to know what's the future of observability look like in an industry?
Yeah. So we have container insights obviously in CloudWatch and manage Prometheus, which we have a lot of support for containers like EKS and ECS, etc. So we are doing our part in terms of making it simpler, whether you choose to use EC2 as your compute or go containers with EKS, ECS, or even Fargate and Lambda with serverless these days. We want to be right there with you to let you see what is going on within your various type of workloads. So the other thing I've really enjoyed being at the summit is connecting with customers. I got to have so many customer interactions here in the Sydney region, and it's amazing to see all the pace of innovation right here. Like yesterday we had both Wesfarmers One Digital as well as Canva, and the different ways in which they're innovating on AWS. It's fascinating to me. Just looking at it across the globe.
Yeah, it is a really great opportunity, like Summit, to bring everyone together, meet a lot of customers, meet colleagues that we haven't met
Totally, yeah.
before. So that was really good. I have one question for you in terms of the tech, because there are a lot of things happening. We have new announcement every day.
Yeah.
How do you keep up to date with all these new things, not just on AWS, like even in tech in general? How do you keep up to date with all the things happening around you?
Yeah. So I have a ritual that I've been doing for many, many years. Every morning I wake up with my cup of tea and I read a lot. So my way of learning is I'm on Twitter and I follow a lot of industry experts. In fact, before I joined AWS, I was already following a lot of people who were tweeting about AWS. I watch a lot of YouTube videos of the latest innovation and what's going on. So for me, that is like my time every morning. I spend like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how busy my days are, where I learn a lot. And then I also interact with a lot of my colleagues just to keep abreast of the changes. To your point, there's new services every day, new features every day. And most importantly, I think customer obsession. Listening to your customers and hearing. Like the next big thing you build likely comes from customer use cases. And so I really enjoy that. Like even just being here, some of the conversations I had yesterday, I was slacking my team saying, hey, there's new things we could be doing. So that's my way of like staying on top of things. And I encourage people to find whatever is your sweet spot, whether you like to read on papers or whatever mechanisms you use. Find some time for yourself where you can do that.
That's really great advice to carve out the time to actually absorb and learn and to improve. That's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. I have one question for the public speaking, because you have done a number of keynotes, and I saw your tech talks, which is really amazing. What is your advice on building confidence and providing that kind of a lot, or delivering or presenting to a number of large audience? For me, when I go on a stage, I get nervous, and even though it doesn't matter how many times I rehearse, still get nervous. So how do you do that without any sweat?
I don't know about the any sweat. So I'll say I've been public speaking for many, many years now. And even now, as I get on the stage, I still have a little bit of that nervousness is a good thing. I feel like having that rush as you get on is a good thing. Now the question is, how quickly can you get back to your Zen state? And for me, that comes through, each of us are different, right? So I watch a lot of videos of how people deliver. So somebody giving you advice on how to stand, how to do things, might not work for you because if it's not your natural way of speaking. So I look and I take little nuggets from others on how to deliver, what to focus on. Because sometimes, if it's a topic that I understand, then you might go too deep and lose the audience because they're not with you. Versus if it's not something you're too familiar with, you do need to get to understand it so that you can speak with authority. So it's like a little bit of balance of being a subject matter expert, but understanding. So one of the questions I always ask is, who's going to be in the audience? Because that truly matters. Who are you talking to? Is it builders and developers? Is it more like CIOs and others? So I think that really matters as well. And make it your own. I mean, when you ask people, you're going to get 15 different opinions on, you should do this, that, or the other. But at the end of the day, you got to make it your own. But I will admit, after all these years, I find it really awkward to watch myself when I see the videos. So hopefully I'm doing well, but...
No, you did so well at the Summit keynotes. That was really inspiring, and that was really awesome.
Thank you.
You had a packed audience. That was amazing.
Oh, it was amazing. And it's so good to be back, honestly, after the past 2 years, to see audiences interact with people and regain those experiences. I'm really enjoying it. And Sydney's been wonderful, including the weather.
Yes, you've been lucky, blessed with the weather.
Yeah.
In the last couple of days. I do have one last question. I know you've achieved a whole lot of things around your career. What's the one thing that you're truly proud of?
I mean, there's so many things, but my startup that I turned around was great, but truly the most inspiring thing for me is people on my team as they grow and evolve into being leaders themselves. Nothing gives me more happiness and pride than that. When I see them speak or when I see them, I mentor a lot as well. I'm in a lot of mentoring programs, and I see my mentees or people who come to me for advice, and when they cross that chasm and make it in whatever their journey is, nothing gives me more satisfaction than that.
Yeah. No, that's really inspiring. And I guess because being in the senior position, you've got a lot of time you're spending with your team. You also being part of community program, mentorship. How do you have a work-life balance, with the career and the professional life and then your personal life? How do you find a balance? Because within AWS, you can do a lot of things and it can be sometimes overwhelming.
Sure. Yeah, that's a tough question. So I always answer it with saying, the physics of it is you only have 24 hours. Mm-hmm. Those are the guardrails. So within that, you have to choose. And I like to make time for my personal, whatever it is I want to do. However, for me, I almost never disconnect. I'm always on the phone or Slack or something. I don't recommend this for everyone. You should find your own way of finding that balance. But however, when you have to do something, whether it's for your children or piano recital or whatever the case may be, you do need to make some time for those sort of things. And most importantly, you need to make time for yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm guilty of this. When I first start, I'm so into everything. I don't work out. I just that's the first thing that falls off. I'm like, I'll go for a run tomorrow. Now I've realized I've got to take that time for myself because it actually energizes me and I do even better at whatever I'm doing. So whatever it is for each of you, I would say never forget, because those things are the first to drop off. Work is always there looming large, and it is important. I get a lot of satisfaction from my job, and so it's equally important to me, and there's nothing wrong with that either. So
yeah, absolutely. Self-care is important, as with family and friends as well. So making time for them and being present.
And remembering that there's only 24 hours of which you need some hours of sleep, and you pick and choose. On a certain day you may do something personal, and other days you may be doubling down on work, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you have to get rid of the guilt, I think.
Yes.
Whichever way you go, because I have two girls, and I used to feel guilty all the time. Oh my God, I didn't do this for them. Or you got to let that go, whatever choices you make.
I absolutely understand as a parent as well.
Yeah.
And traveling quite a lot. Yes.
Yes.
making that time for family is very important too. Yes.
So many of our viewers are a technical audience. So do you mind if we ask a few technical questions?
Please, I'd welcome that.
Excellent. So what do you think is the future of observability?
It's a great question. So, today, and even historically, we've always viewed observability as logs, metrics, and traces. That's sort of the three buckets. And then we have security and SLOs and all of these individual Lego blocks. I think the future of observability is end-to-end as a single pane of glass, viewing everything. If you take, for instance, last year at reInvent, we announced Internet Monitor in CloudWatch. Mm-hmm. What that does is it tells you if you have a problem in your internet network, your cellular network, because think about our customers, right? You have an end application, and you want to know why some transaction failed, or if you're a gaming community, why is there a lag for your end users? Now you're left with logs, metrics, and traces. Where do you go from there? So we want to start at the tip and say, is it a problem with the internet? Is it a problem in your application layer with application performance monitoring, which is like includes tracing, real user monitoring, synthetic monitoring, etc.? And then you want to be able to click on that within your tracing and see what are the metrics that actually result in that. And then beyond that, what are the logs that contributed it? So toward it. So our vision for observability is, first of all, we want you to have the right data at the right time when you need it. Mm-hmm. And then we want to tie it all the way from your logs, which you store somewhere, back to your actual application, so you know exactly where the problem layers are. Meaning, is it in your latest deployment of code that went out? Or is it in the control plane versus the data plane? Like, all of those need to be very seamless and easy. And we want to support hybrid cloud environments because people still have on-prem workloads, whether it's data residency requirements or whatever the case may be. We are committed to supporting access to your telemetry across the board with a single pane of glass, either using managed Grafana, or you have a native experience with CloudWatch. So we want to meet the customers wherever they are in that journey. And I'm actually excited for what's to come. Like this reInvent, we have so many launches that I'm so excited for our customers.
That's really a good point, because when something goes wrong, it's hard to know where to look at it. And then you need to find out, is it the applications, or is it somewhere in your the config changes?
Exactly.
Things happening. So you need to find out, being able to identify this is the root cause where it's happening, so the team can focus on it rather than going around and finding out where the problem is. So
yep.
I think it's really important to have that single pane of glass. Yeah.
And it needs to work, whether you choose containers, EC2, no matter what kind of database you choose. We want it to be integrated into all of those,
Yeah, really making it easy for our customers, so reduce the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Exactly, yes.
And I guess another question, just follow-up question on that is, what are the challenges that you see with the customer in the observability space? What are the common things that customers talk to you that they have some, they see the trend or the patterns?
The biggest patterns I think we're hearing from customers is just the volume of data.
Yeah.
So starting with you have such a huge volume of incoming data, how do you narrow it down? How do you get access to the correct data? How do you find, this is where AI Ops comes in. We have a lot of machine learning with, DevOps Guru, etc. SageMaker does a lot of these. So these services with AI Ops, I do think are going to become an integral part of observability in pointing you to the right thing based on your historical patterns of usage. Anomaly detection is a big one.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not just about either when something goes wrong. This is even when things are going well. How much am I spending? Cost, and especially in this climate, your IT spend is a big parameter. So we want to provide all of those sort of insights seamlessly and easily to our customers.
Excellent. And as a former cloud engineer, alert fatigue is a really big thing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a fair point. So, we do need anomaly detection, which then alerts you and notifies you about things. But alert fatigue is the big thing. So, which is why I think integrating AI Ops, bringing in more granularity so that you're alerting only when needed. And then, to be honest, I think we're moving towards self-remediation. So you don't have to alert. You can, based on patterns and configurations, you can automatically remediate and reduce alert fatigue.
And get rid of the heavy lifting for the customers.
For the customers, exactly, yes.
So you're in town in Sydney for summits. What's your favorite part of Sydney? Have you tried the coffee? Have you been to the beach?
Yes, in fact, those are my top two things. Coffee, number one, beaches, and the third is wine. I love the wine here as well. And the food has been amazing. I could go on. No. I really love it here. Yeah.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for spending time with us and sharing your journey. It's been really valuable, and I hope we will see you again next year.
For sure. I love it here, and thank you so much for having me and spending time with me.
Thank you. Thank you to the community, and we will see you next month.